So today I want to take a look at Buena Vista Winery in Sonoma, one of the oldest wineries still operating in California. So I want to look at this from the mindset of someone who's not very familiar with the winery. Maybe they've had the wine and liked it and want to visit, but they have never visited, or maybe they visited a few years ago and don't remember a lot of details about it. So part one, I want to click on visit in the menu. Makes total sense, right? So I want to look at the choices here real quick and just try to understand what the options are. What I really like is that they've highlighted Buena Vista Winery in Sonoma and Chateau Buena Vista in Napa. So it's very clear that, like, if you're going to be in Sonoma, you can go here. If you're going to be in Napa, you go here. The one thing I would say is that Chateau Buena Vista is a tasting room in downtown Napa, and the name Chateau Buena Vista makes it sound like it's a winery. So there's a little bit of misleading aspects here. Like, if you could say tasting room or something along those lines, or downtown Napa, it might imply what it is a little bit more clearly without having to click on it, which would be nice, because if you click on it and it's not the thing you were looking for, that would be problematic. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Sonoma, assuming I want to visit the winery. And let's just take a look at this landing page. So there's two sections to this page. So the top section is just sort of about the winery. And what I will say is there's a lot of wasted space here. I have to scroll relatively far down to get to the actual tasting experiences. And while it's certainly not problematic to remind people when they get to this page that you're a great place to visit. So some of this stuff would be, maybe some text here makes sense, but like you have this image of a rock wall for some reason, some small text, another image, then you have a video. It's just, there's a lot to process before you get to what you came for, which is what are the options to visit. So I think looking at a way to condense that and make it a little easier to get to the tasting experiences would make a lot of sense. The the other thought here is, I wonder if this was designed for desktop and then sort of condensed back into mobile, but most people are coming through on mobile, so you want to make sure you're designing it for mobile and really optimizing the experience for mobile, and then you can add, if you have extra space on desktop, maybe add something in. So the meat of the visit the winery page is the wine experiences, essentially figuring out what options exist to come and visit and potentially making a reservation. So before we dive into the meat of it, though, I want to just point out, as you're scrolling down the page, and I'm scrolling my finger down, it's blank for a long time, and then it starts to fade in. And you can't see this in the video, but I'm scrolling my finger up the page as if I was scrolling down on the page, and it's kind of fading in and out and giving me the different options. This is an unexpected experience, okay? And there's a classic thing in UX basics that's just give people what they expect. This is not the way web pages usually work. And so unless there's a really, really strong reason to have the web page work this way, it doesn't make sense for it to work this way. Okay. So then the other thing, as I was scrolling through, you could see that there are multiple tasting options that exist from this winery. There's probably 8 to 10. I didn't scroll through all of them. And as again, putting myself in the mindset of someone who doesn't know a lot about the winery, what jumps out to me is that it's somewhat frustrating that I have to scroll through in such a laborious way to see all the options. What I would like as a consumer is the opportunity to sort of see at a glance what my options are and then dive deeper based on what my needs are. So there are two design suggestions that I would make. And again, I don't have access to the winery's metrics or what the most popular tastings are, things like that. So I'm just going on just what I see here. And I'm not going to go too deep into the solutions. I'm just going to say, here's where I would spend my time if I was looking to redesign this. So one is there a grouping that would make sense? So you have this current release tasting, there's a current release bar tasting. Then it starts to get into these more premium high-end tastings. My guess is that the majority of people who are coming in are probably interested in these sort of casual get to know us tastings. And so I would lead with those and have those be the main thing, and then maybe have a section either below or to click into that's premium tastings. It just seems like that would make more sense than sort of treating them all equally. And then the second thing I would say is there a way to view all the options within each group at once? So instead of having to scroll through and read a long description of each one, is there a very basic summary that says, hey, here are our get to know us tastings, here are our premium tastings, very brief description, click to read more, so that I can look at a glance at each of these tastings and then click into each one to learn more about it. It just seems like it would be more helpful to the person who's less familiar with this winery in terms of getting a quick overview of what's available before diving in, as opposed to assuming they want to read this long paragraph about each one and look at one at a time, which would take a long time to go through, and definitely not something someone really wants to do when they're visiting your website, is spend a lot of time reading about things that are not relevant to their needs. So again, how can we provide something at a glance that really helps that customer understand what the options are and then choose the path that makes most sense for them?